right? Like as soon as
I would love to know where you're getting your narrative from. Hang on, I'm going to send you something.
I mean, sure, yeah. I mean, I can like point you towards the like GDP growth. I can point you towards,
You believe those numbers? Okay, that's where. Got it.
What do you mean? Like, what do you mean? I believe those numbers?
You believe the Biden government to be reporting those numbers honestly?
The Biden government isn't the only one that calculates our GDP.
Who else does?
There are like tons of different organizations that fact check the government to make sure that they're not lying about the state of the economy, because they have a financial interest in making sure that if we're like actually on a downturn, they don't want to be making investments into stuff that they, would lose money on. So there's all sorts of different, like different news organizations have economic teams that calculate our GDP, and they either largely align or are exactly the same as what the government puts out. The government can't get away with lies that big. That would be just the most insane shit of all time. And then we can also look at like other economic markers. If you don't think that the GDP is rising, we can look at things that track onto GDP like very closely. We can look at different different markets like S&P 500. We can look at the Dow Jones. We can look at all sorts of different Wall Street things and see where people are putting their money and how much they're increasing in terms of profits right now. Like these economic factors aren't being lied about, right? Like there's different spin depending on who you're listening to, right? If you're listening like solely to Biden and Kamala Harris's team, then everything is perfectly fine. If you're listening to like Fox News, they're going to be saying that everyone's poor and it costs $20 for a carton of eggs. But like at the end of the day, the proof is in the pudding. You can look at any economic marker.
Any economic marker, huh?
Yeah, and like back up what I'm saying, that there are like that we have a generally hot economy, but there are certain sectors that are not doing super good, like the housing market. That's like the super big one that everyone's upset about.
Interesting. You see the video I just sent you?
Oh, let me open that. Well, is there
if
a way
you
that
can play it for your stream, if you can figure out how.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Can I open this in a browser so you're not showing out?
I was gonna make that exact same point, Wolf. Thank you.
All right. I'll just play our. I'll try and hide as much of our DMs. Don't want to be accused of leaking DMs, but we haven't said anything weird, so. Let me see.
Yeah, you could show the whole conversation for all I care.
Yeah, give me 1 second. We'll listen to this.
Heard a new term on TikTok today.
Oh my God, please speak up, lady.
That made me stop in my tracks.
We are living in the silent depression.
This guy believes we are not just living in worse than the Great Depression, we're living in the silent depression. The average annual income in 1930 for an American individual was a little over $4,800. Sounds like nothing, but if you adjust that for inflation, a little over $4,800 a year in 1930 is equivalent to almost 8.
Wait, hold on. Go back.
On TikTok today, that made me stop in my tracks.
We are living in the silent depression.
This guy believes we are not just living in worse than the Great Depression, we're living in the silent depression. The average annual income in 1930 for an American individual was a little over $4,800. Sounds like nothing, but if you adjust that for inflation, a little over $4,800 a year in 1930 is equivalent to almost $85,000 annually for the average salary for one person. Right now, the average annual salary is $56,000 a year. We currently are making less than the height of the Great Depression. In 1930, gas was on average 10 cents a gallon. That would be about $1.73. In case you haven't filled up your car lately, average cost of a gallon of gas is $3.55. To buy a new car in 1930 would have been about $860. It's worth about $15,000. The average cost of a new car today is $48,000. And of course, the most coveted aspect of the American dream, being able to buy a house in 1930 cost about $3,900, less than $70,000. I spend way too much time on Zillow, so maybe this isn't surprising to me, but the average price of a home in America today is $416,000. How could we be living through worse cost of living and wages than 1930? And no politician, no media outlet, no one is talking about it.
That's Bidenomics. It's about growing an economy by strengthening the middle class.
Okay. This is like, okay, we can go through like each one of these claims individually. So like she says that the average net yearly income of Americans during 1930 was $4,800, right? Which in current US dollars would be about 85,000. That's not how we would ever like I don't even know what to say. Like the problem wasn't that there was, you know, the average the average wages was like in adjusted dollars $87,000, right? It's that we had a 25% unemployment rate, right? Like, yeah, if we look at the average income of someone in 1930 after the crash and we have 25% unemployment, that means that 25% of the United States, their income isn't being calculated into the average income of a working family because they don't have an income, right?
What do you think the current unemployment is?
The current unemployment it might be like slightly too low. One second. I think it's like in like the 3.5 to 3.7 range.
And are you getting that?
Employment.
And are you getting that from the Bureau of Labor Statistics?
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware that when people stop looking for work, they stop counting them in that statistic?
Yes. I mean, we can look at the U6. It tracks on like very closely to the U. What is it? The U3 or the U2 that we use on average. Like we can look at all the different kinds of unemployment, the different ways that they calculate it. 3.9% as of
from
May
the
6th.
Bureau of Labor Stats.
Let me see if this is calculated by Bureau of Labor Statistics or if this is. Oh my God, it's paywalled for something that nobody looks at. Come the on.
I know, right? I hate it when I see that. It's like, oh,
like,
yeah.
Who has ever heard of nerdwallet.com like /personal finance? Literally no one. No one's paying for your website. Get some ads. Jesus Christ.
Okay, I'm going to send you what I'm looking at right now.
Yeah, here, we can look at yours. If they might be using the U6, they might be using the U4.
First result when I searched it. Now you can run me through their argumentation and explain to me why you think this is wrong, but they're putting the unemployment to 24%.
Using data about the true rate of unemployment. The first issue that I have, like overall, like what does it mean for the true rate of unemployment? Like we
the
can
actual percentage of American citizens who aren't employed.
Should we count people that are retired in that?
Well, do you think they are? Let's go down. I just found this, so let's go through it and look together.
Well, really quick, I just want to ask you, because this is how unemployment is calculated, right? Like, so do you think that people who are retired should be included in the unemployment rate?
No.
Do you think that people who are under the age of 14 should be included in the unemployment rate?
Okay. I see where you're going with this.
But like there are ones that you might say yes to, right? Do you think
okay,
that
fine. No.
Do you think that they're like a stay-at-home mom should be counted in the unemployment rate? So like these are like I understand where you're coming from, because I also like
Is she looking for work?
Is she looking? Okay, so looking for work should be something that we should take into account. I agree, right? If there's someone that doesn't want to find a job, I don't think that we can call them unemployed. If you're like some Nepo baby and you don't need to find a job, why are we going to count you in the unemployment rate? If you're a stay-at-home mom.
Now we're getting into places where there's nuance, because if someone was looking for work for a year and they couldn't find it, so they gave up, I would count them in the unemployment rate.
Sure, and I think that one of the different and here's the thing, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, like, we don't have to go to this website. Like, they have all of these different measures. Let's just see which one.
Well, and again, we're running back to, I don't want to use the Bureau of Labor Statistics because I don't trust the government, sir.
That makes this very difficult.
Yes, it does. And now, again, we touch on one of the fundamental differences between people on my side and people on your side. I do not trust the institutions, especially right now. I don't think they're telling me the truth.
Do you think that they were telling the truth while Trump was in office?
Not all of them. Most of them, no.
So do you think that he lied about having the lowest unemployment rate in American history?
I think that Trump is a bullshit artist, and he's very good at putting a positive spin on whatever he's trying to put a spin on. Do I think that it was a low unemployment record? It was a very low level of unemployment during his term as presidency. Yeah, the economy spoke for itself. Things were cheap. People were employed. Tax breaks were happening. Tax breaks were actually happening for companies that trickled down to individuals. When has that happened in living memory? Proof is in the pudding.
Do you think that we should run, the government should run deficits?
No.
Why the fuck do you support Trump's tax cuts then? He ran up the biggest deficit.
Because I don't believe that the government should avoid deficit by taxing the out of me. They need to learn how to manage a goddamn budget just like I have to.
But you don't have the ability to create money. And you also don't have the ability to...
Are you one of these people who thinks quantitative easing is a good thing?
I think that it is a tool. It can be good and it can be bad.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, the fundamental disagreements keep adding up.
Yeah. Okay, 1 second. I'm super interested to see how they calculate this number. Gross domestic... Wait. For decades, the development... Blah, blah, blah. That includes, among others, GDP, consumer price index, and one of the unemployment rate. Generally speaking, unemployment rate is calculated by simply dividing the number of employed persons, as defined by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, by the number of persons in the labor force, employed or unemployed, who are actively seeking employment, and multiplying by 100. While this measure may be elegant in its simplicity, it presents a very incomplete and, in many ways, misleading picture. So, like, even right here, they're wrong. That's not the only way that the Bureau of Labor Statistics calculates unemployment. That's just like the general marker of unemployment that most people agree is the most useful for us to look at. And it's not just like the government wants us to look at. That's like businesses. That's, for anyone that is like a speculative investor, like these are numbers that they would want us to be looking at because it's the most useful for us in everyday life. Not that the other ones aren't useful, but like by and large, the one that we're looking at is going to be the U3 or U2. I can never remember. I never want to say U2 because I hate U2. Let me see here. Just tell me. Methodology. There we go. Current population survey conducted by the BLS. What is the BLS? Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is used to the U3 unemployment rate. This helps ensure an apples-to-apples comparison between their true rate of unemployment and true rate of unemployment out of the population described below. Accepts the U3 rate for comparison purposes, but modifies it by adopting two important stipulations. The first stipulation deals with the work week. To be employed for the purposes of LESEP's true employment concept, an individual must either have a full-time job, 35 plus hours a week, or have a part-time job, but no desire to be full-time, e.g. students. The second, to be employed. Okay. The second stipulation is that an individual must earn at least $20,000 annually. But if you're not working, what if you're working less than 35 hours a week, but you're making more than 20K a year? 1 second. Calculated in January 2020 dollars. Okay, so that might impact things a little bit. Current population surveys outgoing rotational group study, a study that takes 1/4 of the survey respondents to ask specific questions about their wages. So they use the same markers as the U3, but then they add stipulations of have a full-time job or have a part-time job but no desire to be full-time. And the second stipulation is that an individual must earn at least $20,000 annually. Again, what if they don't? Okay. I don't know why we would use this number over anyone else's number.
You don't know why we would.
Well, tell me why we should value this number over the number that literally every business in America uses in order to decide whether or not they want to go on like a hiring spree, raise wages, lower wages, et cetera, et cetera. Like they do that largely based off of the also even looking at this this chart, this is saying that there was a
which chart?
Like the one that you sent to me.
Yeah, but there's several charts on that page. So which one?
Like they're all like largely like kind of the same, but like our unemployment rate right now is not like that much. Like right before COVID, it's the exact same. This true rate I'm looking at right now, September of 2019, 24.3, and true rate right now, April 2024, 24.2. So like even by this, it's largely tracking on exactly to the same graph as the U3. And just to like tell you which graph I'm looking at the first one, the true rate of unemployment versus headline rate of unemployment.
Yeah, I figured that might be the one. I was looking at that too. See,
and in fact,
you're correct about that.
And in fact, like it looks like it dipped below anything that Trump, like the lowest unemployment rate that Trump ever had was 24.3. But it looks like by their numbers, Joe Biden's had lower unemployment than Donald Trump, which tracks on to what I was saying about the U3.
Let's see, 16.
Like if you look at June 2022, it's 22.5. The lowest that I'm seeing from Trump is September 2019, 24.3.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Like we can say that like 25% of the American public is unemployed, but that's just like I don't think that that's giving us anything that we can work actionably on. Whereas like the rate of unemployment that we always use, the U3, is something that we do take action on. Not that we could, but we do take action based off of that, because it's the most useful for economists to plan out, for businesses to plan out, for individuals to know where their what their value in the job market is. Like,
okay, let's say I'm for the purpose of moving forward in the conversation, let's concede the unemployment point for now.
sure.
Move forward with the rest of the rest of the video.
Oh, okay, yeah. I forgot we were looking at that video. Let me go back to here. Let me pull it back up so that I can.
Heard a new term on TikTok today that.
Okay, so the first claim was the unemployment and the average salary, which again, like if we're looking at the salary of the average person with a job in 1930, that's going to be, cutting out a huge amount of people. That it's not a one-to-one comparison, right? Which, like, I would agree. Like, yeah, it would be nice if we had a higher average yearly income. Like, I think that we should strive and work towards that. There have been efforts that I could point towards that Biden has done that we could, I would say, work towards that. But 1 second. In 1930, gas on average 10 cents a gallon, adjusted for inflation, about $1.73. I don't think that is at all comparable to what's going on right now, because number one, the cost of producing oil at that time was significantly lower, because we had we didn't even take the lead out of our gasoline at that time. Number two, not everyone there wasn't as high of demand for the amount of supply of oil at that time, right? So like the average person in 1930 wasn't driving around in an automobile. The average person didn't start getting a car until I think like the late 50s, early 60s. Like that's when people started getting cars on as the family mobile, Like before that, it was walking, trains, horse and buggy, riding on a horse. Like, yeah, it was probably cheaper back then, but there's like a million factors that I would point towards before like saying, oh, it was better back then for buying gas than now. People didn't need gas like for their cars because they didn't have cars, which leads into one of the other claims. The average cost of a new car today is $48,000, but in 1930 they were about $15K in today's dollars. Like supply and demand, it's probably cheaper because there wasn't a lot of people that it was like the most like luxury item of luxury items. Like nobody had cars back then. People didn't need a car to get around. People didn't want to buy a car. Some people were scared of cars. Like,
okay, you just made a point that's a little bit self-defeating.
Which part?
If a car back then was a luxury item, and then then it's a luxury item, but now it's a necessity, then that means more cars are being consumed, bought, and traded now. So that should have driven the price way down.
The cost of producing a car has gone up compared to back then.
Yes.
The cost of producing the cars has gone up. The amount of like safety features and little like doodads and fun screens and all the like stupid rear view cameras and all the shit that we put in our cars nowadays probably drives the price up significantly. Cars are going to be more expensive today, like both because of the technology advancements that we've made, and like there's more demand for cars, but like it is a necessity now, and it wasn't back then. I don't think people would be dropping $48,000 worth of 1930s dollars unless you were like, giga rich, like Rockefeller rich. But like there were some people that were not Rockefeller rich that were buying cars because it was like a novelty thing. Kind of like the same reason like Rolexes are like super expensive.
I do not think that the how to articulate this. I don't think that the increased cost of production is the silver bullets to saving your argument there that you
Well,
might
no,
think
I mean,
it
like
is. When you
it's
increase
not the only
demand,
thing. That's not the only thing.
okay,
Like, there's like a million different factors that, like, I don't think that this is a good marker for, like, we're worse off today than we were during the Great Depression. I think, like, car sales, like, you could compare that to, like, any time after, like, 1960, and I would be way more, like, willing to, like, concede that point. Like, oh man, yeah, it probably was. But, like, uh, even at the when cars first started getting bought as like a necessity in the average household, the cars were more expensive than the houses, right? Because we had an overabundance of housing, and like the cars were like a big deal to buy. I just don't think that, like, the automobile market is a good indicator here. And fuck, there was something that I was going to bring up, but I didn't want to interrupt you. We were talking about the production costs. We were talking about the demand. Oh yeah, like, also we're talking about the average cost of a car. Are we including, like, which cars are we including in that? Are we including Lamborghinis to get the average? Are we including those $150,000 stupid F-150s I see driving around all over the place here in Texas? Like, which cars are we taking into account? Because, like, the average person is not number one, doesn't need, nor does the average person buy an F-150, right? Like, the average person living in a city, or like just getting a car to commute to and from work, is going to get like a sedan, right? Or maybe they'll get a little SUV, like a compact SUV, right? Which I think the average cost of those is significantly under $48,000. But if
Right.
that guy wants to jump in, we're gonna have to either move into a Discord, or we'll have to move into a Discord, or we'll have to have him send me a friend request so that I can add him
do a group chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, are you in my adventurous conversation Discord?
You know what? I'm part of like 5,000 Discords. If you could send me a link to it, I don't even know. Yeah.
Okay, 1 second. Okay.
Okay. Let's see here.
Hello.
Oh, I just like jumped straight into it. Oops. I'm sure he'll drag me in here in a second.
I did.
All right, there we are. And I'll do this right here and that.
What up?
How's it going?
Good.
All right.
I'm getting things moved around myself so I can see again. So there's a fundamental problem to the argument that you're creating about the vehicles alone. I won't even go beyond the
Sure, I
current
mean, like,
part of the conversation.
and I'll admit, like, they're like, I listen, I like talking about economics. I like learning about economics, but I'm not an expert on economics by any stretch of the imagination. There might be something that I'm wrong on here. I know in terms of like the unemployment rate, and at least some of the stuff that I've said about the automobile market, I know for sure that I'm right on those things. But like in terms of like the economic impact, if you have something that proves to be wrong, I'll move my position.
So here's the fundamental problem. Okay.
Mhm.
So you can go with the argument that you have. That's totally fine. However, just that argument of going from luxury item to necessity now that necessity costs more, but it costs more because of all the luxury items. We don't need backup cameras in the cars. You can't get the cars without them anymore. You
Sure.
don't need power windows to operate the windows. You can't get a car without it anymore. A standard vehicle, you now have to pay more for because it doesn't have the luxury items. So you are forcing people to pay for a luxury item that they don't even want.
On some part of that, I agree. But not all of those are like things that the government has done, right? Like that's consumer, indicators to the company, like what people want, right?
Could I
Like,
intervene first?
well, let me just like respond to what you said. Like, I agree. Like, my first car was a manual, and I loved that thing. I could not find a manual to save my life when I got a new car. I prefer manuals. They're cheaper. They're more fun to drive. But consumer demand, people don't want to learn how to drive a manual anymore. So it comes standard with automatic transmission. I don't think that's a government regulation. I don't think that government regulation also like adds backup cameras or anything like that. If we want there to be cheaper cars that have those options like taken out of them, then like consumer demand needs to reflect that, right?
Well, so here's the problem. Because it's a needed item, the consumers can't fight against that. And it's not necessarily that it's government regulations that's created it, but the cost is now more because you have to pay for it. It's a necessity to get by in life. And the car manufacturers in this particular instance can have an impact on it, because if they decide I can make more money by adding this one little feature, I'm going to. And now you as the consumer don't have a choice.
Well, they wouldn't put those options in if they didn't think that people wanted them, or if the like indicators from when they first started implementing these things into like more luxury cars, right? People were like, "Oh man, it would be really nice to have that in my Toyota," and then Toyota started adding it as a like additional charge to their standard package, and then like more people went for that option, so they started producing more cars like that. Like I'm totally fine with saying like. Well, I don't know what the solution to that would be other than either consumer demand needs to reflect like, hey, we want cheaper cars and we don't need backup cameras. Our necks are totally fine with swiveling around and looking at our mirrors. We can, say like, I want a cheaper car. I don't want an automatic transmission. But like, unless you want the government to come in and say like, car manufacturers, you are now like legally required that like 15% of your stock must be, manual transmission without like all of these extra doodads. I don't know what the solution would be.
Well, I think
So I think there's a couple things that go into play there. I think that to some extent you have to recognize that government regulation does play a role.
Yeah, to a certain degree, but I don't know about in terms of
and
like
then
these
on-
things, right?
And so on top of that, because you have these individuals who are being dumbed down by society, who are being more materialistic, who don't really have what it takes to have the willingness to live with less, you're not going to be able to have the consumer population stand up against it.
I mean, listen, I don't necessarily disagree with what you're saying there. I mean, but I don't think that it's
And
like
that brings
society
it all the way.
I
all
don't
the
think
way
it's like
back to
society getting
Zach's
softer,
point.
right? Like the thing is, people like it when their cars are nicer. Like, yeah, it's materialistic, but like, welcome to American society, right? Like all through like 70s, 80s, 90s, like you saw them like hardcore pushing like, oh, this one has an 8-track player, and then everyone wanted the car with an 8-track player. This one has, oh, well, come get this CB radio so that you could talk to people. And then like technology advanced, and it was like, oh, now we have tape players in our cars. And some people were like, why do you need, like, you have a radio, why do you need a tape player? But then there were like multiple tape players where you can put like 8 tapes in there, and now you can switch between them, and people thought that that was obscene. And same thing with CDs, and same thing with like every single extra little doodad that we add on there. Yeah, it might be an unnecessary thing. Like, would we be able to like get by on chitty chitty bang bang driving down the street to get to work? Like, yeah, probably we would be able to like survive that, and it would be like surviving on less. And if we as a society want to go towards that direction, like, you're not going to catch me stopping you. Like, I think those cars look cool. But the problem is, people do want those. People want their Teslas. People want their big screens all over their cars. People want 12 different cameras on the outside of their car to make sure that they're not merging into another person. They want the extra safety features. They want all of these things. Like the biggest like criticism that I have in terms of like policy, like something that the government is doing, they put a lot of restrictions on trucks that they have to be like a certain. I don't know exactly what the metrics are, but it led from us having like those nice little Tacomas that were like relatively fuel efficient that people used to drive all the time when I was a kid, to now every single truck that you see is 20 feet wide and 16 feet tall, and they have the giant, like the biggest tires you've ever seen in your life. They have seat warmers and seat coolers, and like ball massagers in them. Like those things are obscene, like materialistic giant trucks that are like more form than function for the most part at this point. Where like some people just want like their tiny little Tacoma that they can put a couch in the back of.
I agree with you, and you just conceded that that situation exists because of government regulation.
Well,
so
yeah,
remind me again why you're on the side that likes more government.
And I just want to point this out because this loops all the way back to Zach's original point about an individual's principles.
In what sense? Sorry.
So if your principles are to have all of those materialistic things, the things of this world, then obviously you're going to go along with certain policies that are going to be able to let you have those things without working for them.
Well, hold on. I never said anything like even remotely approaching that. See, like that's not the principle that I'm holding to right here, right? Like my principle that I'm holding to here is like I'm a pretty ardent capitalist at this point. I don't think that people should be able to get something for nothing. I think that like you should be able to get a job and work for the stuff that you have, and have a good work ethic, all of that stuff. 1 second, there's someone I got a ban in my chat right here because they're typing racial slurs.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, that's always fun. But like the principle I'm holding to here is like I believe in capitalism. I think that that's a good way for us to organize ourselves in a oh, I already deleted it. He just typed out the N-word one letter at a time. Yeah, but the principle I'm holding to is like people have a choice, and people are going to make those choices. In regards to like the government regulations thing, I can't remember which one of you guys said it. Like the government regulation thing. Yeah, of course I'm going to support good government regulation. I'm going to not support bad government regulation. Right? I'm not a hardline, always support more government type person. I think that the government has a place in steering the economy, and it should steer it where it should, and it should keep its hands off where it shouldn't. That's like what part of our economy they need to do that in is going to change over time depending on which markets need that. Right? Like we had a little bit too much of a hands-off approach when it came to the crash in 2008. We probably should have had some regulations around what loans the bank should be charging people with, right? Those subprime mortgages. When it comes to like right now, we have, well, actually, I almost said something I disagree with. Right now, we have a housing issue, but like it's not, it's local government issues that are keeping us from lowering housing costs, but that's a whole other thing.
yeah, hope to see you again. Please subscribe if you haven't. I usually stream a whole bunch, or I say a whole bunch, 2-3 times a week. I'm going to be gone all next week because I'm going to be out of state. But after that, we're going to hit the ground running because I'm going to be unemployed and ready to move. And then I'm going to be unemployed in DC and streaming a bunch. All right. So subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll catch you later.